And if they don't want to pay, they don't have to leave. And this is actually the most exciting part about the freemium model to me. So instead of having a customer sign up for a free trial of your product and you getting a 20% conversion rate on that free trial, and then they have to leave if they don't pay you, you actually get to keep all of your customers, which is really awesome. There will always be segments of customers that can't afford your product. It's not the right time for them to buy. They might want to pay you later, but they might not have budget for it now. So why not keep them in your ecosystem while they don't have the right kind of value or aren't seeing the right kind of ROI on your technology? And that's really important to freemium, is you're able to acquire these customers and you're able to keep them on your network and on your service and not going over to another service if they're not willing to pay. And hopefully you'll be able to convert them later, but if not, then they become a marketer for you. So that's really, really important. And just a few reasons why freemium does suck, right? So just so we can balance out the fact that there are multiple arguments, and there are definitely different, kinds of things to watch out for. And again, freemium, we see only really works if you have the kind of scale business that makes sense to have the economics work out. So sales will actually hate you. So this is kind of funny because sales love you because you're getting them lots of qualified leads and lots of people talking to you. But it turns out that you are their number one competitor, right? So we lose most of our enterprise deals to ourselves. It's a customer that decides to stay on the free product. So we might have a salesperson who's having a conversation with an organization with 20 or 50 employees, and we're trying to convince them that the premium version, the pay version, is much better. But it turns out they're actually solving their problems on our free product. So they might not have passed the threshold where the enterprise edition is sufficient or significant enough for them to want to pay. So this makes sales frustrated. So the way to solve this, of course, is to remind them that they have a lot of qualified users calling them, and that overall the net of it is that the business is much better off to have this freemium service, because ultimately that's the longer term vision. You also have to deal with delayed gratification, right? So this is something that our CFO hates. You have lots of users that you're paying to keep on your service, but you're not making anything from them. So you really have to think about it differently. You have to think about it as a long-term play, as a marketing strategy, because some users might take years to pay you, and most, of course, will never pay you at all. So you have to be able to understand that they're going to be your marketing engine, and that they are really an organism to learn from, and group of people that are really important to keep on the network and continue to figure out how to sell to over time. You also see lower commitment, right? So if somebody's not paying you, then there's only so much commitment that they have to your product. People do speak with their dollars, and they want to be able to pay for things that they're going to continue to use. So when they pay you, that's obviously a great sign. But if they're not paying you, then you only have limited leverage over them as a customer, and that means that there might be lower commitment on your product. So the smaller the barrier is to entry, of course, then the smaller barrier there is to exit. And I think as we heard earlier, it's actually a good sign when customers will pay you thousands of dollars, because that means that they value their time and they want to be able to stay on you. So you have to think about it from a commitment standpoint. So more engagement with your customers, better usability on your product, more ways to get data from them, more marketing within the ecosystem is going to be really important to increase that commitment from those customers. And lastly, free is traditionally seen as cheap and insecure, right? So no one ever got fired for buying IBM. It's the same problem that we heard about earlier, is you have to be able to defend against the fact that your brand will take on a different kind of life, right? Because your users, you no longer control what your users are doing, the scale of your user base, what they're saying, and how they're using the product. And that's super important because as you move up to the enterprise food chain, they're going to care a lot about what your product does and how your product is perceived, because they're buying in many ways on emotion, on the emotional value that you're selling. So you have to be able to match your brand and your technology to meet the fact that you are a secure enterprise product. And so there's lots of great things that exist now, like SAS 70 certification, and a lot of good things that you can do within marketing and thought leadership to make sure that the user base does know you have an enterprise product and that you are really secure. So I do think that's really important to think about. So how do you take the fact that your ecosystem will take on a life of its own, and you'll have to be able to figure out how to make sure you market a message that is beyond that, that does serve and provide enterprise value. So that's super important. And in conclusion, Google wants to destroy you, so you do have to be more competitive nowadays. That means that you might have to lower the barriers to getting to your product, and you might have to be able to deliver your product to more people to stay super competitive. So that's the value of freemium, and that's the benefit of the business model. And there's a lot of really great ways to make it successful, and a lot of great ways to create a lot of value in your user base. But again, it is a marketing tactic, and it's really important to listen to your customers along the way so you can build better value for them as they pay you. Cool. So thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? Just so I feel good? Like one.
I got one, Aaron.
Okay, great. What's up?
You said you have trouble getting people in the enterprise to buy your enterprise product when they're on the free product. Have you noticed any price sensitivity in that? So are they willing to spend a little bit but not a lot? Or if they're willing to pay, are they willing to pay through the roof?
So that's the other interesting thing is that there isn't a lot of traditional sort of economic logic on that side of things. So if you think about sort of the irrationality of buying, right, you might have some people that will pay 10x more, right, because they just perceive the value of security as being much more important than another customer. So we might have a business that has 50 users on the product. We can't convince them that there's a better way to manage those users. But you might have another organization that has 10 people and they'll pay 10 times more than that 50-person organization would have paid. So there is a penny gap, right? So as soon as somebody's getting on the product for free and they're leveraging it and they're fine with it, then really paying $100 a month might be too much for them. So we do see that, and so the best way to solve that, I think, is to narrow in your product focus. I think you guys have done that pretty well. So again, there might be certain kinds of enterprises that value different reasons to upsell than others. So segmenting your marketing and your upselling message is incredibly important. So the banking industry, right? So if finance organizations care a lot about security, marketing organizations that buy from Box don't. They care about co-branding and customization. So you have to be able to sell different kinds of value propositions to different organizations, and you're going to get different. You're going to get a bit of delta in what you're going to be able to capture from those organizations.
Hi, I could have asked this question probably to any speaker, but I'd love to hear your perspective on
I
this.
appreciate you saving it.
A lot of the freemium business models and everything basically we talked about today is based on some free available aspects, infrastructure, bandwidth that Comcast delivers, advertising platforms, etc., that most of us don't have control over. How do you see that as being something that you become very dependent on in these models? And
I wish you
because
hadn't
those
saved
things
it.
could change.
So you're saying we're relying on a network of people accessing our product, or
On bandwidth that someone could start controlling more in the
Yeah.
future on advertising platforms that you don't own, etc. Yeah.
Right, that's a great point. Yeah, I mean, it's super important that people have access to our product, and we have to be able to. I think I'm understanding it correctly. You are at sort of the mercy of the network and certainly other access points of how people are going to be able to get to your product. I think that overall there's a lot of progress in terms of net neutrality and these types of areas, if that's what we're referring to. But yeah, I mean, the tenet is that people will be able to have access to your product, and enough of those people will be able to have access to your product that some percentage of them paying is a very large business. And if that set of math doesn't work out for your particular organization or product, then freemium is not a particularly strong strategy for you, I guess. But cool. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate your time.